May 25th Rules Committee meeting to order. Melvina, would you give the invocation, please?
Eroda glande här till heliga handes gatin hope nimna det dosta heldi do hest no het jatlige diu I joji wan galan ni wi ske on hi do hest du yuktage ha no la joga dage yuke hest ni hu det dosta heldi do hest han do jloskan kohi. Father, we just thank you for this day. We just thank you for all your blessing. Lord, you're our keeper and our strength. Lord, for sometimes we waver, but Lord, you're there. Just guide us and protect us. Give us wisdom and knowledge. Lord, that they be love among all of us. Lord, you know the heart and the thoughts of each and every one that's here. We just thank you for your blessings that you have bestowed upon us. Just lead us and guide us. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Shelley, would you do roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mike Shambaugh,
Here.
Joe Deere, Keith Austin, Danny Callison, Julia Coates, Sean Crittenden, Mike Dobbins, Rex Jordan, Johnny Kidwell, Daryl Legg, Wes Snowfire, Dora Petskowski, Joshua Sam, Melvina Shot Pouch, E.O. Smith, Condessa Teehee, Victoria Vasquez. We have a quorum.
If you've had a chance to look over the minutes, could I have a motion, please?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. All right, first in reports from our Marshal Service, we have Shannon Buell.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Besides my monthly report, there are a couple of things that need to be added. One, the Cherokee Nation, under the chief, has implemented the Public Safety Grants Program to agencies out in your areas. So it's a grant that's up to $50,000 per agency. So I'm just giving an example like Tahlequah. So Tahlequah Police, they can apply for this grant. Tahlequah Fire can apply for this grant. Tahlequah EMS through NHS can apply for this grant. The 911 Center can apply for this grant, and emergency management for Tahlequah. So there's all those agencies that can apply for this public safety grant process. So tell people in your area if they have that. The email that they need to send their request to is CN and then a dash, then partners with an S at the end at cherokee.org. So that's CN-partners at cherokee.org. If there's anybody has any questions. Also, if you have police chiefs or fire chiefs that have any more questions, then call me. Please tell your people that it needs to be the agency head that makes that request. I don't need police officers on a midnight shift Saturday nights making that request. So the agency head that you talk to, have them make that request through the tribe. Other than that, if anybody has any questions on any of the stuff that I have here, I'm more than happy to answer this.
Anybody have any questions for Marshal Buell? Councilman Crittenden.
Marshall, you mind doing that email one more time?
Okay, it's CN, so C is in Charles, N is in Nora, a dash in the middle, then partners with an S at cherokee.org.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, sir. Councilman Callison.
Marshal Buell, on your report, I think it's right there on the first or second page, what is the difference between an assist and a community patrol? I know you've got them broken down in your North District and your South District, and I know one of them you've got more assists and the other one you got more patrols, and I didn't understand what that was.
So an assist is, let's say we have an agency like Tahlequah. I'll just use that as an example. My officer's driving through Tahlequah, and Tahlequah gets on the radio and says, hey, we need help with a break-in or something. And my officer goes there and responds to that. That's us as actually assisting a fellow agency. Does that make sense? Yeah. Whereas a community patrol is, we have designated communities within the Cherokee Nation. Most are high blood quantum areas, and we'd like to make sure that we keep that tracked. That would be Kenwood, Bell, Cherry Tree, places like that. Does that make sense? So one is just a normal, if my people are in that area, they will go through and get on the radio and say, hey, I'll be in Cherry Tree for the next 30 minutes or whatever. That's what that is. Where the assist is, we're actually going on a call for that entity. Stillwell, the 911 center, Stillwell calls, says, hey, we have a burglary in progress. That would be an assist to that agency.
Does this relate on your assist, whether the other agency actually partners up with you or not? Is that why there's more in the south than there are in the north?
Whether they partner up or not is not really the issue. It's just if my officer gets on that scene. Okay.
Anybody else? All right, thank you, Marshall. Next, from the Office of the Attorney General, Ms. Sarah Hill.
Good afternoon.
Ms. Sarah.
I just have a few different issues I wanted to bring to your attention today. One of them is one that you may have seen in the news, the compact extension legislation. So the Cherokee Nation has been working along with some other tribes, including the Chickasaw Nation and the Choctaw Nation, to get through the Oklahoma legislature, legislation that would extend the dates of the motor vehicle compacts and the tobacco compacts in Oklahoma. So the Cherokee Nation's motor vehicle compacts are up for, will expire, in the next few months. And the Choctaw and Chickasaw's tobacco compacts were also due to expire in the next few months. And what we hope to do is bring legislation, hope that we'll be able to do shortly, is have an opportunity then for the tribes to extend the terms of our existing compacts exactly as they are into the future. And that will give you all some options, aside from just relying upon being able to reach an agreement with the governor, presuming that perhaps that might be problematic for any number of reasons, which he's talked about publicly. So that's legislation that's currently being worked on in the State House. It has passed, the tobacco extension passed the Senate yesterday. The car tag extension passed through the House yesterday in the special session. Today is the mandatory dead day, so it has to sit and wait one whole day. And then on Friday, the two chambers will switch, and the House will take up car tags, and the Senate will take up car tax and the House will take up tobacco. And if it passes out of both those houses, it will go to the governor for signature or for veto. So that's an intertribal effort. It will create a statutory option, and there are other examples that we have of statutory compacts. The gaming compact is a statutory compact. Motor fuels is a statutory compact. And if those pass the House, then the tribes would be able to do what we've done in the past, which is send a letter accepting the compact terms. So then you would be in a position to accept that extension on behalf of the Cherokee Nation. And that would have to go through our normal process here. And you will, of course, all of you who are in the tribal council at the time that happens will have an opportunity to vote on that when it comes up. So if we're able to get it passed and get it through. So that is the purpose of the compact extension legislation that we've been working on. And I have to say that government relations at the Cherokee Nation has been working incredibly hard on that, with a special mention to Adam McCreary, who has been, as far as I know, literally sleeping at the Capitol, working diligently to get these things accomplished on behalf of the Cherokee people. Secondly, I wanted to mention that we had jury trials this week. We had one jury trial in May. We always have several set, and as is often the case, things that are set for a jury trial, when the actual date is in front of people, they begin to think about accepting plea offers and different things. We did have one case that went to trial. It was tried, and we obtained a conviction on all 3 counts, so we were happy with that outcome. That was tried by our head prosecutor, Miss Sandy Crossland, so she did a great job. And it was her birthday, so she won her case on her birthday. That's always great. On another important thing, it does relate to the Cherokee Nation, although indirectly, the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals has added 3 more reservations to Oklahoma in the last month. The Ottawa, Peoria, and Miami reservations have never been disestablished. So they join the 5 tribes in the Quapaw Nation in Oklahoma as the post-McGirt tribes that have reservations. And they will be, I think that is definitely going to make the law enforcement situation in that part of the state better, because there was some question about, the state was declining cases. Would the United States prosecute those cases? And now that there's some clarity from the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals, everyone knows what their jobs are now. The feds will take the cases that belong to them. The tribes will have their cases to prosecute. It just creates a much more consistent place for everyone to begin having discussions about intergovernmental law enforcement. And since that's right there on the boundary of Cherokee Nation, I think it's important. I think I'm glad to see that that issue's been resolved in a way that's helpful. And then finally, I want to mention law enforcement actions by the United Keetoowah Band, because I know there's been a lot of discussion about that. I had a couple of different law enforcement agencies reach out to me concerned about law enforcement action being taken in their counties by the UKB. The UKB does not have jurisdiction in the Cherokee Reservation. The Cherokee Reservation is under the exclusive tribal jurisdiction of the Cherokee Nation. And so I reached out to local law enforcement and assured them that that was the case, did so in writing, sent them a letter explaining that this reservation was the reservation of the Cherokee Nation, that the Cherokee Nation was the only tribe that could exercise jurisdiction within our boundaries in Sequoyah and Adair County, which were the two counties where I think it's been the most problematic. But I went ahead and sent that letter to all of the sheriffs in the 14 counties so that they would all have the same information coming from the same source. And, I think that's something, it's a lot of the things that they were seeing were things like traffic stops were being conducted in all these different counties, and the UKB simply lacks jurisdiction to do that. So I pushed back on that and will continue to push back on that anytime I see incursions into Cherokee Nation's sovereignty. And that's what I believe my oath of office requires. So with that, I don't have any other really important updates on cases. Some of the important cases that we're tracking, Brackeen, Hooper, Strobel, are all kind of in the same holding pattern. They've been briefed, and I don't have any updates for you. As I have them, I will provide them. So if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them if I can.
Are there any questions for our Attorney General? Darrell?
Sarah, what happens if somebody did get pulled over and the Keetoowah gave them a ticket? What do they do with that?
So, I think they would need to talk to an attorney about what their options are. If they've already paid a ticket, by the UKB, or if they have one pending, they need to discuss that with their attorney. The Cherokee Nation doesn't represent individuals, but I can tell you that, we've made it, I put in my letter, and I would be happy to, that letter is in the public domain of what the case, that it's clear that the Cherokee Nation has jurisdiction, and I think they should file an objection to that. They should make a record that they don't have jurisdiction over them. That's what I would do.
That it? Councilman Callison?
Where does the Keetoowah tribe actually have any jurisdiction?
That's an excellent question. The best argument for jurisdiction that the UKB has, and I would not call it a slam dunk case, but the best argument for jurisdiction that they have is on their 76 acres of trust land that they have, which is where their tribal headquarters is located. So they have 76 acres of land in trust in Tahlequah. So if they have a strong argument for jurisdiction, that would be the strongest argument that they would have would be at that location. Outside of that location, there simply isn't a reasonable or reasoned legal argument that they have jurisdiction in the Cherokee Nation Reservation. They will make such an argument, but it is not reasonable, in my opinion.
Anybody else? Wes?
Yes, just kind of more interested in this argument going on with the UKB. Do we have a letter of exclusive jurisdiction for the Cherokee Nation?
We have a fee patent title from the United States to the Cherokee Nation, which titled this reservation into the hands of the Cherokee people. And we know that that reservation was never disestablished by act of Congress. So we know that Congress created the reservation of the Cherokee Nation, and we know that it was never disestablished. And there is no federal act, there is no place in the law where that land was ever taken away, no point in time where legally that reservation was taken away from the Cherokee people, and thus it continues to belong to the Cherokee Nation today as it has.
Okay, but there's no exclusive
There
letter
absolutely is
from
exclusive
the
jurisdiction.
BIA, which gives our authority to have law enforcement in the area.
There is a long line of cases and legal authority which stands for the proposition that the Cherokee Nation has exclusive jurisdiction over the Cherokee Nation Reservation. It is a clear legal case.
And on the fee patent that you said that we have, does it say the words reservation in there, or does it call it a territory?
It's a fee patent title. It
Okay,
means we had fee patent title to the entirety of the Cherokee Reservation. That means it wholly belonged to the Cherokee people.
right. And so are the Cherokee people over at the UKB, or are they some other group of people?
The Cherokee Nation government is who it belongs to, the Cherokee people together in the Cherokee Nation government that you are a sitting council member for.
Yes, I know.
That Cherokee Nation
And
government.
I love all my Cherokee people, no matter who they're registered to. So I appreciate your concern to try to alleviate what seemed to be a problem with a county sheriff's office down in Sequoia County when putting that letter out there. So I can appreciate that. I also can appreciate that our brothers and sisters over at the UKB were offering assistance to other law enforcement agencies, considering the fact that there is a lack of patrol officers, actually, in majority of our 14 counties. And in fact, after the McGirt decision, there's been a difficulty of hiring those. So I know that they were just merely trying to help and aid. And I know, in fact, in instances where they've come upon in aiding and assisting local law enforcement where domestic abusing of a citizen had come up and was actually told to stand down when merely trying to just help, aid, and assist. So I know that their practices may be rubbing this administration the wrong way. I just, all in sincerity, like when people try to work together on making sure safety and protection above all of every citizen, all Cherokee people. So that's just kind of one of those matters I wanted to address there. The other one was the letter of approval that we have to have from the BIA for our election law. Have you got that? I know that I have asked for that before in council meetings. I had not received one from your office because it has to deal with the matter of this body's legislation, what we pass on if it was approved by the BIA.
Well, first of all, I want to clarify that the government of the Cherokee Nation is responsible for law enforcement on the Cherokee Nation Reservation. And people may have different feelings or emotions about that, but that's a matter of law. And how people feel about it at any given time is irrelevant when it's a matter of law. Secondly, as I've said before, the BIA did approve our election, and we do have that letter.
Okay, well, what about the other? So you have the letter on there, and it gave its entire approval, or was it a partial approval?
It's complete approval.
Okay, I actually had to request it because I couldn't get it from your office. It said that it's adequate and proper pursuant to the nation's governing documents and legal sufficient on their face, but the approval should not be construed, however, as a finding that the application of certain provisions of our election law would be legal in all circumstances. In fact, they have issues with parts of that law, and they said it would likely be invalid under certain existing Supreme Court cases, and this has to do with the independent expenditure that we talked about, that I was very adamant in saying was against the law of the United States because it does not meet the United States Supreme Court decision. So the United States letter from the BIA to give it its approval actually goes on to say that in the event that LA 1422 is challenged in either tribal, state, or federal court, the nation may not rely on its approval as a defense, nor should the nation assume the court of a competent jurisdiction would afford differential to the approval. So I just wanted to make that clear in this council room, is that something that I was arguing about
I
on
think
its
you've
approval
actually
of it.
made it incredibly unclear.
I had
by
actually
not-
made it clear with the letter on here, and I
No.
didn't ask for your rebuttal on it. I just merely making a statement of fact among the council. So that's all I was doing, and I appreciate that. I did have a question on our non-disclosures that we sign on. If the Cherokee Nation enters into a non-disclosure with another entity, this council should receive that notification of a non-disclosure, correct? At least knowing that there's two entities having a non-disclosure that they can't speak about. So we don't know what's in there, but they know that there's having a non-disclosure agreement.
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Well, in 2020, there was a non-disclosure agreement that was signed with the Cherokee Nation. And a company, and the reason why I was looking at all this, because I was looking at how much money the Cherokee Nation had and was wondering where it would go to, considering the fact this council gave up its authority to properly understand where the money was being expenditured. And actually, I called for an audit on that. But, so I had to do some digging and investigation on where we were spending some of the money. And one of the non-disclosures came back from a company of LLC that was not distributed to this council. I actually had to go see it with my own eyes, considering, I guess, the concern around the company LLC and who it was dealing back to. Dealing back with the president's son actually was the one that's coordinating that LLC. So if we had that as a non-disclosure agreement, but yet couldn't even supply it to this council, my question is, what are we hiding?
I still have literally no idea what you're talking about.
My point exactly. So that's the concern when there's not any transparency from your office down to this council. So, appreciate it. No, it's not getting ridiculous. It's simply saying that if there is a
Point of order.
non-disclosure, this is not a point of
Mr.
order.
Watt,
I still have the floor.
listen, I am the
still have
chair of
floor.
this committee. Listen
still
to
my-
me.
I've not
Sir,
stepped out of order.
I'm gonna terminate
You
all.
can't terminate
You
anything.
watch me. If you just listen for a minute, there has been several people
I had the
have
floor.
made.
They didn't ask for a point of order. I had the floor.
I just did.
Yeah,
And
you
you
did,
will
okay.
respect that, or this conversation is over. Now, you let me say what I'm going to say, and then we'll continue.
Go ahead, say
There
it.
will be order in this meeting.
please.
Hey,
I'm listening.
I've about had enough, and we're going to put an end to this.
It seems like you're trying to get a rise again.
Well,
You've seen this before. Go ahead
what
and
we're
speak.
not going to have here is we're not going to have grandstanding. We're not going to have things put in front of this council without any evidence. We're not going to make things up. If you have some documentation to show, bring it. Otherwise, what you're saying has no teeth, has no meaning, means nothing.
I have
And
the-
just like other things that you brought up that we've asked for the evidence, it's never brought up.
I supplied the evidence of the child trafficking case to everybody. In fact, even I had another council member who sent a letter around saying how ridiculous it was, even though the House Judiciary Chair admitted that that happened 3 weeks ago. So I have the BIA,
Again-
hang on, I had the floor, you asked for it back. I have the letter from the BIA that I asked the Attorney General to submit that to us. That's the legal requirement for us to know that we're making sure that we're passing good law. And they didn't supply it to us. Why? Because the letter says it couldn't be held in the courtroom. That's a concern, and it should be a concern with this body. Now, when I brought up the non-disclosure agreement, I brought it up because I cannot get that non-disclosure agreement to you guys because they will not allow us to have a copy of it sent to us. We can't look at it. That's the problem with transparency I was trying to address. So I appreciate you grabbing the floor and making a point of order, and I appreciate the concern by the other council members, but that was something that I am not grandstanding on. It's merely a sense of important because we don't have the lack of transparency from our own Attorney General back to the council when I've requested it numerous of times.
Mr.
So
Speaker.
I appreciate it.
Hold on.
Appreciate the floor, Chair. Appreciate it, Attorney General. Thank you.
Well, I will say this. You know, there was a lot of different things brought up that none of us have any idea what he's talking about. There has been nothing presented to us with these complaints. It's brought up at one time, and council acts like we should know everything he's talking about. We know nothing about what he's talking about because he has brought nothing forward. I don't know if he's brought anything forward to you to ask these questions, but it seems to me like all the time, it's so easy, if you have a problem with any entity in the Cherokee Nation, that you go to the head of that entity and you ask them. If you have a question about money, go ask our treasurer. If you have a legal question, go ask our attorney general, and that doesn't happen. But, you know, we can sit here and do what-ifs with zero evidence of anything, and that is not right. That is absolutely not right, especially in front of this camera. If you have something to say...
Speaker, I'm sorry, it's right. It is
If
my
you have
authority on my
something to-
council
point of
seat to
order.
sit here and
Point
speak on my
of
behalf
order.
of my constituents. Every time I've just
Point
shut down
of
by
order.
you and threatened, it threatens my own constituents
Point
from
of
being able to be heard. I'm not going to sit here and belittle in my council seat that I'm elected to represent my constituents, and you've done that time and time again. I don't care.
Point of order.
That's what it's
Point of
done here.
order.
I've heard it from...
We might need to take a 5-minute break so Councilman can get a hold of himself and collect himself.
collected. I'm fine. It's just quit belittling me in front of everybody else. I'm
Point of
not
order.
belittling any of you guys.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to entertain a motion to vote of the council to have Counselor No Fire removed.
We have that motion. I'm not sure I agree with that, but we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I would like clarification from the attorney. Removed is a big word. Yeah.
You do.
Let's take a 5-minute recess, let's pull that.
Let's do that. Let's,
Can I say something before we get done? Before we go to the recess?
yes.
I just want to say, I've seen this before at the very beginning, not just from Council No Fire, but, and I'm not addressing you, I'm saying that at no point in time do we need to ever raise our voice to a lady, especially a Cherokee lady. So I'm going to reiterate that you need, if you're on this council, to remind yourself to conduct your behavior as a professional, not a child, when you're addressing a woman. And I will stand on that for every woman. And some people in here need to be reminded of that. That's not how we conduct business. We are the Cherokee Nation Council, and we conduct it as a professional. And it seems to me, if we go farther with that, if we know the answers to the question, then why are we asking for confirmation for people? And that's all I'm going to say. So I said, I appreciate you for bringing that up. Let's go into a break, but I think people need to be reminded of how they conduct themselves on this council. Thank you.
Make a motion, we recess for 5 minutes.
We have a motion to recess for 5 minutes and a second. All in favor? All opposed? We're in recess for 5 minutes. I'm going to call this Rules Committee meeting back to order. It is 1:36 p.m. Okay, I think we need to move on. There's no reason to go backwards. But I do want our Attorney General, I want you to respond to some of these things, because there's a lot of things that have been said today.
I basically have two responses. I think, first of all, as I've already responded to the issues regarding the non-disclosure agreement. I cannot respond because I do not know any of the things that he's talking about. On the issue regarding the approval of the election code, I think that was sort of read very selectively. The election code has been approved. Everything in the election code has been approved. That's what I said. That's the correct, that's true. What I told you was true. What they were careful to say was, you cannot rely on this letter from us if you get called into court on some of these issues. You can't say this is okay because they told us it was okay. You're going to have to defend your own legal positions, which is fine. That's what the nation does. We're our own government, and we defend our own legal positions, and I'll defend the legal positions that we took in the code. What's important is that it was approved. And I think that's the main response to that. I don't have any concerns about our ability to defend our actions in our own courts or in the federal courts. And then finally, just quickly, on the issue, regarding the disputes with the UKB, I think that it's important to understand there are real-world consequences for having a law enforcement agency out in the universe acting as if it's a law enforcement agency when they lack jurisdiction. The UKB has 0 cross-deputization agreements with any state agencies. So if they collect evidence at a scene and that case goes to the state, all of that evidence is not, there's a good chance it's not going to be able to be used in that case. And that specifically has happened before. And I think Shannon could probably speak to that, with more, he's just been more involved on the ground than I have been. So if Shannon wants to speak to that, he's welcome to do that. But other than that, those are my responses.
Good afternoon again. If you will let me just for a second, I'll talk about the cop side of the Cotulla issue. Let me be very clear. Those young men and women at Cotulla Light Horse, they just want to be police officers. They just want to do their community good. They just want to do what they get paid to do to be a cop. And so on a person-to-person level, I appreciate those officers. But there's something striking that people forget. I cannot go to Oklahoma City and open a criminal case that is out of my jurisdiction. We've had 2 rapes in this area that the Cotulla Light Horse has responded to. Both were sent to the U.S. Attorney's Office, and both were declined because the Katuahs had no jurisdiction. It took the FBI to have to go pull those cases from Katuah, give them back to us. We reworked that case, not using any evidence that the Katuah brought forward to be able to even get a chance for these cases in prosecution. So I don't care where we stand on whether they have it or they don't. I'm telling you, they don't. Both U.S. attorneys in both the Northern District, Eastern District say they do not have it out of their 76 acres. There's a rumor going around, it's not a rumor, it's fact, that one of the Katuah Light Horse has an SLEC. That is a Special Law Enforcement Commission through the BIA. All my officers have that. What that gives me is, one, is federal tort protection. Anytime I'm working on my reservation or my restricted land, it gives me some protection if I do something. Two, it gives me the ability to present a case directly to the U.S. Attorney's Office. So I don't have to go to our federal counterpart, don't have to use the BIA, okay? But I can only do that on my reservation. If you look at Muskogee, the city of Muskogee, part of the city is in Cherokee Nation, part of it's in Creek Nation. I cannot use my SLEC to go over to the Creek Nation side of Muskogee. I can't do that. The BIA was very clear, because I know I talked to the SAC of the BIA in Oklahoma. He was very clear when he gave one officer an SLEC at the Katuahs that it is only good on your 76 acres. He was very clear with that. He was also very clear with me that if they go outside and are trying to use it outside of that, that they will pull that SLEC, just like they would for me if I went to Dallas or Oklahoma City or Joplin, Missouri. I can't do that. The only way I can use my SLEC outside of my primary reservation is if the BIA calls me to go there, i.e. they've done that in the past. They've called and said, we're shorthanded with BIA officers in the Dakotas. Can you send a couple marshals? Yes, we can. But is the BIA asking me to go, and then they go, okay? I cannot self-dispatch there. The cross depths, if I'm Katuah, I would look at maybe cross-stepping with Cherokee County for my 76 acres. But cross-steps don't go outside of my primary jurisdiction. I'm cross-stepped with Muskogee PD. But I can't go over to the creek side of Muskogee PD and put my Muskogee County hat on. It doesn't allow me to do that. So this is well-established case law of 23 years that I've been looking at it. We don't do that. I would expect that they shouldn't do that. As far as I can see, being a cop, right now the Katuahs have criminal jurisdiction inside of that 76 acres. And I believe that we have concurrent in there right now. They do not have it outside. I've had both U.S. attorneys tell me they don't. I've had the BIA SAC tell me that they cannot use their SLEC outside of that 76 acres. So when I get a Katuah out in the middle of my reservation, that's going to mess up a federal case on a victim that's not going to get victim services because that officer was not acting under the color of law. There's a problem there. Now, if Congress ever says, like they did in Hopi and Navajo, that the Katuahs have a jurisdictional status here, I'll accept that. I'm not mad at them. They just can't do it, just like I can't go to Oklahoma City, or I can't go to the Creek Nation and enforce law, or I can't go to the Seminole Nation or the Quapaw Nation. I can't do that. So is there any questions on that? I promise you, that is the reality of it on the street. And the Katuahs know this reality.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Hey, just a general comment, because I know you guys have ran into this a lot, not with the Katuahs, but just a lot of the cross-jurisdictional agreement and stuff that's going on with the reservation. I know that for a while, you see the Katuah Light Horse Patrol driving around, and I know that with the recent events that just happened, can cause some frustration with their own law enforcement, because, law enforcement and law attorneys or the Attorney General over there, they may not always see eye to eye either, but just maybe a kind of a thought of trying to come together, maybe at least through this, to show some support for one another, because I know that many of the times, your marshals have done great jobs talking and having good relationships, because they do have good relationships with the Light Horse Patrolmen. Just maybe kind of key back in on that real quick, maybe call them up and kind of make sure that, together still, throughout this questionable, problematic issue right now.
Well,
that-
Wes, that's why I brought up
Yeah.
that those individual men and women that are on the street.
Right.
They're just trying to do good for their job.
Right.
But they're mistaken. I
Right.
have extended my hand numerous times to everyone over there.
Right,
I will tell you right now, if one of the Katua Light Horses is in trouble on their
Right.
76 acres, we're all coming to help them. How's
Right.
that? There's an officer on the street is an officer on the street. But I'm worried for that individual officer that might get out here and get in a use of force where a citizen dies.
right.
And when that lawsuit comes, they will lose it. Opinions aren't the point.
I know also too on the clarification from the letter that was sent out from the sheriffs to the Sequoia County, I think he was questioning even like unmarked SUVs. I know the Katuas don't drive that, so it may just need to be help clarify the general public that, I mean, we have marshals drive around in unmarked black SUVs as long as the feds, so that way the public knows that, hey, they're not saying even us, because I know that letter had question and had that in there, and so I want to make sure that the public is aware of that, so that way whenever they see an unmarked vehicle, that they're not concerned based off of what that sheriff out of there put out in that question.
Okay.
So, all right. Appreciate it, Chair.
Any questions? Anything for
Anybody
me?
else? Well, I'll just say this. You either have jurisdiction or you don't. And the law is black and white in areas, and this is an area where it is black and white. Because, if you do get outside of your jurisdiction, just like Marshall said, and you do something, and there may be, you may have to use your weapon, or you may have to even lay hands on somebody and touch somebody, and they get hurt, then your department's liable, and you can be sued civilly also, so when you're out of your jurisdiction. So I appreciate you explaining that. I don't think there should be any misunderstandings on who has jurisdiction, who does not, because it is very cut and dried in this instance. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Does there anybody else have any questions for our Attorney General? Do you have anything to add, ma'am?
No, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next, from FOIA and GRA, Gwen Terrapin.
Good afternoon. It's good to see all of you today. Since I sent out the report and updated the website, we had one new request come in, so there are 15, but there are still 5 outstanding and no GRAs. And you guys, if you would like a copy of the updated report, I'll be glad to send that to you.
Does anybody have any questions for Gwen? Dr. Teehee?
So when we, as counselors, are requesting information, is that typically going to come in the form of a GRA?
We prefer it to. There is a GRA form that I can send to you if you'd like.
And so when we receive the report from your office, we are given a pretty complete list of those FOIA and GRA requests?
Yes.
Okay, so if there were claims being made that information had been requested, we would be able to look at your past FOIA and GRA requests to see whether or not that was actual fact?
You mean if it was requested in the past?
Yes.
Yes.
And we might even be able to submit a GRA request to you to see which counselors had submitted what information?
Yes.
Okay.
And you can also, on the website, we have past year's reports, and then we have all those on there. We're just not able to link the documents on there because there's not enough space to be able to do that. But you're welcome to ask for a copy of those reports, and we can submit that to you.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I appreciate the time, Chair.
Anybody else? All right, thank you, Gwen.
Thank you.
Next up from the Tax Commission, we have Sharon Swepson.
Good afternoon.
Hey, Sharon.
I believe you all have my report. If you'll notice, under the motor vehicle year-to-date, we're at 1.83 decrease from where we were this time last year, so we're just running pretty even. And then on the revenue and taxation side, it's a 25.43% increase over what we were last year at this time. Most of that's due to retail sales and alcohol sales is where the biggest increases are at. We also have 445 veteran sales tax exemption cards out there that have been issued that are good at any of our businesses that we have. So I try to answer any questions that you might have.
Does anybody have any questions for Sharon? It's good to see another worker at Jay. I was there the other day, so I was excited, so,
Yes, hopefully we get to keep that one.
yep,
So,
that would be good. All right, thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
All right, next from the Gaming Commission, we have Tia Deal.
Good afternoon. I hope everyone's doing well. I'm just going to go over a quick summary of Ms. Purcell's submitted report. In licensing, we have employee licensing. We did 282 individual licenses, which included temporary permits, suitability determinations, orders, and renewals. For vendor licensing, we had 51 vendors for companies and individual vendors. For our compliance department, the commission approved 18 new electronic game themes, 7 new gaming components, 4 new main programs, and 2 new gaming cabinets. Our audit department, they just finished the cards and tournaments audit, and they're currently working on the key and access audit. Ensuring everything's being done the way it's supposed to be. Our next gaming commission meeting will be held on June 2nd at the Tahlequah Casino. And that's pretty much it. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to.
Councilman Deere?
I just got a real quick question.
Yes.
You know, some states have certain, how many casino licenses they can give out. What's the number for Oklahoma?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I can get the answer and get it to you.
I was just curious, because we're looking at New York and different ones, and they're only allowing 4, Arkansas has 4. I was just curious how that's working in Oklahoma
Okay.
with things. So if you can just email me, text me, it's just more of a general question
Okay,
compared to other states.
not a problem.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Anybody else? All right, thank you, Tia.
Thank you.
All right, next from Human Resources, Samantha Hendricks. Hey, Samantha.
Hey there. So you have my report. I'm going to share a little bit more information as opposed to what's just in my report, because we focus so much on recruiting, or I have been since I've been here. And I thought, it would be great to kind of tell you what we're doing to retain employees, because when you're with employees, you're not just recruiting them, you're also trying to provide them tools to keep them, because that's what brings our numbers up and brings our numbers down as far as open positions. So just to kind of give you the overview, I've got a long list, but I'm going to keep it short. I hope. So we continued with, last time I talked with you, we talked about open interviews, and we had open interviews on Tuesdays between 2 and 4 on a regular basis in Tahlequah. So we're continuing to do that. That seems to be a huge success. So we're seeing people that are needing help with applications and things of that nature, so we can see them right then. Every single one of them are receiving interviews from our staff. And if they're qualified for a position or what positions they're interested in, then we certainly get them in touch with the hiring manager. So as of today, we've interviewed since March when we started. There's 140 applicants, over 140 applicants. I think there's 145. So we're pretty happy about that. So we're going to continue on. We're actually going to look at pushing that out to the properties, so their health facilities, because there's a different group of applicants at those locations too. So we're happy about that. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that we are pushing out a virtual new employee orientation. We want to be mindful that before we were asking employees from hours, an hour away, hour and a half away to come in for orientation on a Monday, and then health would be on a Tuesday. So we're looking at doing virtual orientation so that applicants or new hires will be able to attend orientation at the place they're actually going to be working, as opposed to having them drive that far to come in for an orientation process. So right now we have that live in Stillwell, Veneta, Nowata, Muskogee. We have Jay and Sallisaw that we're in the middle of testing that will go live on June 5th. And then the Salina Oshaleta will go live on July 10th. So we're taking our time to make sure we, test the equipment to make sure it's all working like it should. So, I talked about training. Our training numbers are up. We've, since our We have, on the learning portal, we have new courses that were added, which is 132. Here's a big number that's impressive, is our courses that have completed by our employees is 16,665 since January of this year. So we're trying very hard to make sure we're training employees, helping with certifications, e-learning, that type of thing. So I've got a lot more to share. I know we're short on time, or we're going to, but I'll stop right there because that's a lot of good things. Did want to mention my team. They're doing an outstanding job. I tell you, they're really working hard to make sure we provide everything we can to those employees and applicants. So, including communication. But if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer that in reference to my report or whatever, so.
Anybody got anything for Samantha? All right, good job, Samantha.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I was looking at my notes, and I was remiss. There was a motion on the floor from Councilman Paskowski. Do you want to?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I will withdraw my motion.
Okay. Motion has been withdrawn. Old business, none pending. New business, number one, Councilman Sam, would you take that, please?
This is a resolution confirming the renomination of Mike Doublehead as a commissioner of the Cherokee Nation Tax Commission, and I put this in form of a motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Doublehead, would you want to come up and say a few words, please?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, thank you to each of you for your service to our Cherokee Nation. I know that it requires a lot of time and dedication, and as a tribal member, I certainly appreciate that. As a son, as a former council member by the name of Heiner Doublehead, I certainly understand what you go through, and tip my hat to you for what you do and the service that you provide in improving the quality of lives for all of our Cherokee citizens. The only other thing I would say is Sharon mentioned our veteran tags. As you all know, this is Memorial Day weekend, and Memorial Day was established to remember those who gave their lives and paid the ultimate sacrifice for the freedoms that we have. So I would encourage you to take just a moment this weekend and think of those folks, but also take a moment, if there are any members of the military that are in your circle of family and friends, thank them for their service. That allows us to do what we do today. Mr. Speaker, I'll take any questions that you may have.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Doublehead? Wes?
A comment, just want to say thank you for your continued service with the Cherokee Nation. You've always done a great job, always been out in the public, been seen. You know, it's good to know that when we have people that are on certain boards are always out there in the community to have questions and issues addressed. So just thank you and appreciate it, and just want to be added as a sponsor. So appreciate that.
Thank you, Counselor.
Do I have somebody over here? Councilman Crittenden.
Yeah, just happy to have Mike do about anything. If you know Mike Doublehead, no matter what he's doing, he's going to rise to the top. Real professional, nice family guy. Sure glad to have you around. Also, if you're into yard sales and flea markets like me, back in the 80s, and I hope he still has these, when Nike first come out, he was kind of rooming with my uncle in Peavine, America, and I snuck back there that he had them new Nikes rigged up. So, well, if you still got any of them and wouldn't mind selling some, Mike,
Counselor Crittenden, I'll tell you the mistake I made back then was buying Nike shoes and not Nike stock. But yes, I do still own some Nike tennis shoes. Yes, sir.
Seriously, glad to have you, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Well, I think it's a good testament that, you know, you're good at your job, and you represent Cherokee Nation well, but you're also out at the different events that we have, at the groundbreakings and things, and you are there supporting the nation. And I would just like to say thank you, because you do go above and beyond. You
Thank
really
you.
have done a good job.
I consider it an honor and a privilege to serve our nation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All right. If there's nothing else, Malvina?
I have to say, I knew Mr. Doublehead was black-headed, like me.
It doesn't seem that long ago. It's strange yours never changes.
All right, let's have a vote here. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mr.
We are
Speaker.
fortunate to have you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, number two, Councilman Legg, would you take that, please?
Yes, sir. A resolution confirming the renomination of Steve Wilson as the Commissioner of the Cherokee Nation Tax Commission. I'll put this in form of a motion.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Wilson, you want to come up?
CO.
CO.
Mike more or less said it all, so I don't have much to say now. But is there any questions from the council?
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Wilson? All right, well, let's vote. All in favor? All opposed? Welcome back, sir. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. I'm glad to service the Cherokee Nation.
Thank you. All right, number 3, Dr. Dobbins, would you take that, please?
This is a resolution confirming the nomination of Lori Enlow as governing board member of the Cherokee Nation Comprehensive Care Agency, known as PACE. I move for her approval.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And I believe we have Ms. Enlow on video. Can you hear me, ma'am?
Can. My volume just.
Oop.
Can you hear this?
We can hear you, we just can't see you.
Oh, my phone, sorry. I think I'm with you now.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor to be nominated. My experience with Cherokee Interference Program as a nurse practitioner for 5 years was extremely rewarding, and I am still incredibly passionate about seeing that program succeed, seeing more of our techniques in this program. You may or may not know, I'm kind of living between 2 states now, in Arizona and working currently for the Nation. And being out here, it's been pretty striking, the difference in the ability to serve workers back home at Cherokee Nation versus what is available for the Nation here in Tennessee. It has given me a great appreciation for truly the impact of our elder care services and what incredible programs and opportunities we have to improve that and to continue to serve more elders. So I'm very invested in seeing that program succeed, and I would be to serve on that board. I think my experience with the program might provide just some helpful insight into the day-to-day of how that program
You kind of trailed off then, we couldn't hear you. I don't know if you're moving around or if you can stay close to your mic so we can hear you better, maybe?
Yeah.
That's better.
I'm gonna turn my video off just so I can get closer to the mic and you don't have my face
Okay,
right on you.
that'll work.
I apologize. I'm not sure what you caught of that, but basically I'm very honored at the opportunity to serve, and happy to take any questions. I don't want to take up too much of your time.
Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Enlow? All right, let's vote. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right, congratulations, ma'am.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. You guys have a wonderful weekend. Wonderful.
Thank you, ma'am, you too. All right, number 4, and I want to say on number 4 there was a typo. It is not DeWitt, it's supposed to be a V, Devitt. So number 4, Melvina, would you take that, please?
A resolution confirming the nomination of Ivan DeVitt as the governing board member of Cherokee Nation Comprehensive Care Agency, PACE.
Thank you.
Hold up just a second. All right, you put that in form of motion, you trailed off.
Yes.
Do I have a second? Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Devitt.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Certainly, I appreciate all of your service, and to me, it's an honor to be able to serve my nation. Especially, I think it would be rewarding to be able to have some impact on the lives of our elders in our tribe.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. David? Melvina?
I've known Ivan for quite a while, and he has the heart for the people, and he's always concerned about the people in our community, and I enjoy working with him in our community. So he is, definitely a community person.
Thank you.
I believe, you're president of the Rotary, aren't you? Are you the president of the Rotary Club?
Past president, past district governor of 6110, and currently serve on the commission.
Okay, all right. Well, he's been a businessman in Grove for a long time, and a lot of different things that have dealt with the community, and he's always put himself out there to be community-oriented in his work. So, yeah, proud to be a sponsor. Anybody else? All right, all in favor? All opposed? All right, congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
All right, number 5, EO, would you take that, please?
Yes, it's a resolution confirming the reappointment of Bill Anderson, D.O., as governing board member of the Cherokee Nation Comprehensive Care Agency, PACE. I'm going to put this in form of a motion.
We have a motion and a second. And Mr. Anderson, here he comes. Come on up and say a few words, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone's time. I take it as an honor for the nomination. I've been in a medical practice taking primarily care of geriatric people for the last 8 years, and I look forward to working with this organization.
All right, does anybody have any questions? Darrell?
I don't have a question, but I'd like to say I've known Bill for about a little over 20 years, and he's a real nice guy, leader in the community. And I was tickled to death to be able to sponsor this for him. And whenever I saw your name on the list, I was thrilled. It's good to see you and good to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
EO?
If I might add, I've bet over the years that he's bought many green and purple jerseys in Sequoia County. He's always great to all the kids, and he's a good man.
Thank you.
All right, well, let's vote. All in favor? All opposed? All right, congratulations, sir. Glad to have you.
Thank you.
All right, are there any announcements? I have a couple. For our July meetings, we've had a problem in the past with people going on vacation. So if we could move those meetings, all of them, to July 10th and have all our meetings on July 10th. Are we okay with that? Okay, all right. And our August meetings, we run into a conflict with our inauguration as it falls on the same day as our meeting. So if we could move that August meeting up to the 7th, and it would be just our regular committee meetings, and that will actually be probably the last time that all the outgoing councilmen will be here, and we can have one last meeting together on the 7th. Is everybody good with that date? Not yet. Yes. Yes. Julia?
I would just note that there are at-large community meetings on August 5th and 6th, and the one on the 6th is in Seattle, and it doesn't end until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we have always had problems in the past getting back to Tahlequah for the next day for meetings. So I would just offer that as a consideration. It's going to put a hardship on Councilor Kidwell and I think.
Yeah, this inauguration is set, it can't be changed, so we're either going to have to do it before or it's going to have to be a late month, and I want, what? Let me look at the calendar. So we're 10th. Yeah. So we can't, 7th.
Yeah, it'd have to be this week.
Yeah.
Either do it on Tuesday or start later. Well, you can't start later.
So the August meeting, obviously the 7th is on Monday. Would the 8th, is that, Dobbins, is that? How about the 8th? Does that give you enough time, Julia? That'd be okay?
The 8th would be fine
Okay.
with me, yeah.
Well, let's schedule that August 8th, because I do want, it's important to have that meeting not after, the inauguration. We want it before. So we'll make it the 8th. And
Thank you.
that'll just be regular committee meetings. Otherwise, we'll meet at the end, the same as we always do the last Thursday. Yes, okay, all right. That's all I have. So, yes, yes.
Speaker.
All right, yes.
That July 10th, you said? in
Yes.
July, and that's all of them.
All of them,
All
that's
of 'em.
all. We'll have all the meetings in one day on the 10th. All day. All right, the next meeting is tentatively scheduled for Thursday, June 29th at 1 PM. I need a motion to adjourn. Motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? We are adjourned.